Okay, this is Ron Risman with CameraTime.com, and we just got in a Rebel T2i, the brand new Rebel T2i. It was an order with B&H Photo just yesterday, overnight. Said I would be able to get it here today in order to show you a comparison between the Rebel T2i and the Canon 7D. Of course, these cameras are going to be compared quite a bit because of their video capabilities, and of course the price point. A huge difference between them. The Rebel T2i is going to retail for $7.99 and $8.99, depending on whether you want the body only or whether you want the lens itself. And as you can see here, this is the kit version. So this is the Rebel T2i with the 18 to 55 millimeter lens, and this is full 1080p HD recording. And I've got a Canon 7D right here that I'm going to be comparing the camera to physically, and then we're going to shoot a little bit with each in different lighting conditions in order to see what happens image quality wise, both for stills as well as for video, although today I think I'm going to focus more on video. So we're going to take out this is the packaging that comes with it, the serial number and warranty card, the software, the product manuals, which I almost typically never use because I go online and I get the PDF version of the product manuals. And just taking it out of its wrap. And it sort of comes showroom ready, and you get little hang tags on it here, so this gives you some of the feature capabilities of it. It's 18 megapixel, it's ISO 6400, although in the expanded mode that can go up to 12,800. Self-cleaning sensor unit, which is pretty standard on all Canon cameras. It's got in-lens image stabilization with the 18 to 55 that comes with it. It shoots at 3.7 frames per second. Now that's compared to the 8 frames per second that the 7D shoots at, and it has a 9-point autofocus system versus the more advanced, I think it's 29-point autofocus system of the 7D. So it's not the same camera as the 7D, it's a lot smaller physically. It's got a 3-inch screen, still very high resolution screen. As a matter of fact, it's over 1 million pixels, so it's slightly higher resolution screen compared to the 7D. And as you can see side by side here, I'm going to check the camera to make sure that we're actually in view here. And let me take the box out of the way. And just to give you some physical size dimension differences here, we're going to take the body only and compare it on top. So it is really quite a bit smaller. I would probably say 20%, 15% smaller width-wise compared to the 7D. If I put them back to back, it's probably 15-20% smaller overall compared to the 7D. Of course, I got the lens on here right now, so it's not really a super fair comparison. And of course, you're going to lose some features when you go to this particular camera. All your menus are going to have to be done when you're in live view mode through the LCD screen, since you don't have a top panel LCD like you do with the 7D. So there's going to be some functionality and usability differences, so everything's going to have to be done through the menu here. You do have a dedicated ISO button here, which is a very important added feature, so you don't have to go into the menu system in order to select that. And of course you can see some control differences on the back of the camera here. Whereas on the 7D all your controls are to the left of the LCD with the exception of the dial. Here you're going to have your typical four-way controller where you have your self-timer, your shutter, your drive modes, your autofocus modes, white balance modes, and your picture style modes. And then you have other buttons here for AV, which is your aperture priority mode, and I'm not really 100% sure. This looks like a print share button, so you can print right to Canon printers right from the camera. You also have your live view button up here, and you've got a menu button over here. No battery in here as of yet, so I'm not going to turn it on right this second. And then you've got your picture zoom in, zoom out over here, and you can also use this for playback as well, for going to thumbnails or to zoom in on a particular photo. You've got a built-in flash, a pop-up flash like you do on the 7D, and of course you're going to lose the remote commander features, the wireless system that's built into the 7D. So you don't have a ton of still photography features that are similar to the 7D, but you've got video capabilities that is supposedly on par with the 7D, and that's what we're going to test today. So let me stop recording here for a second so I can put the lens on both these cameras, or at least on the camera here. Hold on one sec. Okay, so right now I have the two cameras set up on the tripod. The camera on the right side of the screen, or on the tripod's left, is the new Canon Rebel T2i,
And the camera on your left, but on the tripod's right, which is this camera over here, that is the EOS 7D. I'm recording my audio, just for anybody who's curious, into a H4n, a Zoom H4n, and wirelessly wearing a lapel mic. And on both of these cameras here, I have an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. It's a non-image stabilized lens if you look at the 7D, and it is a IS lens, or an image stabilized lens, on the T2i. So I'm going to try not to do any comparisons that involve shake reduction, because that would not be a fair comparison. And if I find that there's a dramatic difference in quality between any one of these cameras, I will swap lenses just to get some idea of whether it's the lens causing that at all. My gut feeling is the lenses are pretty similar, so it's just going to be a matter of stabilization, which I'll keep off on the 18 to 55 millimeter lens. So I'm going to do some shooting with both of these cameras now. There'll be a slight parallax error between the two, but not too bad. And I think ultimately we'll be able to really see what the Rebel T2i can do video mode against the 7D. Okay, I set both white balances now to automatic, a little bit more fair. I think I had the 7D white balance set at 4300 degree Kelvin manual setting, whereas I had it automatic on the Rebel T2i. So right now I'm focused in on my dog. They're both at ISO 6400, which is way beyond what you'd want to use for video, but why not test it? And I'm going to pan a little bit here, left and right, give us some idea of color saturation. I still think the 7D looks a little more saturated. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It might not be real. I think if I look at the walls in my house, which are yellow in the living room here, I would say the 7D on the viewfinder looks more accurate. The Rebel T2i looks a little bit washed out, but that's on the viewfinder. We'll see what happens when we get into the computer. So this is ISO 6400, f3.5, and 1/60th of a shutter speed. Okay, right now everything is still set the same, f3.5, 1/60th of a shutter speed, but now we're at ISO 3200 on both models. And again, my dog is just laying there. He's kind of bored that I'm not paying attention to him. And now, before my battery dies on the Rebel T2i, this is ISO 1600 in both cameras. And now let's switch down to ISO 800. Okay, right now this is ISO 800 on both cameras. And through the LCD viewfinder, they look fairly equivalent. Again, a boost in yellow a little bit on the 7D. And that's probably all the comparison I'm going to have time for. Let's try ISO 400, but my battery may die on the T2i since I haven't charged it since I took it out of the box. Okay, and this is ISO 400 on both cameras. Again, all the same settings as before. So we're going to see what happens with ISO 400. Now let's go down to 200. Okay, and this is ISO 200 in the same room. And I won't make any comparisons right now on the LCD viewfinder. Let's try ISO 100. Okay, right now we're at ISO 100 on both cameras, and pretty much everything is pretty dark. But this will be a good way to see some grain and noise, although ISO 100 I'd expect we wouldn't see too much. So let's see what happens with this comparison.